Kofi was a small girl with bare feet and a worn cotton dress. She walked slowly through the dusty cemetery on a Friday afternoon, the sun beating down on her shoulders. In her hands, she carried a small bundle of wildflowers that she had picked from beside the road that morning. These flowers were not expensive or beautiful, but they were picked with love, and that was all that mattered to her. The cemetery was quiet and peaceful. Old graves surrounded her on all sides, with some markers made of stone and others made of simple wood. Kofi knew this place well. She came here every single Friday without fail, rain or shine. Her mother, Amma, had died 3 years ago when Kofi was only 6 years old. She did not remember much about her mother's face anymore, but she remembered her voice and her warm hands. She remembered how her mother would sing to her at night before sleep came. As Kofi walked deeper into the cemetery, her feet made soft sounds in the dust. The graves seemed to watch her as she passed. She knew where she was going without thinking. Her legs knew the way by heart. After a few more minutes of walking, she saw the familiar wooden cross with her mother's name carved into it. The wood was old and worn now, and some of the letters were fading. But Kofi could still read it clearly. It said, Amma, a woman of kindness. Kofi knelt down in front of the grave and began to arrange the flowers. She placed them gently at the base of the cross, whispering words to her mother as she did. Hello, Mama. I brought you flowers today. They are pretty, I think. I picked them from the road near the village. The yellow ones are your favorite color. Kofi often talked to her mother this way, sharing the small events of her week. But then, something happened that made Kofi freeze in place. She heard the sound of quiet crying coming from nearby. Her heart began to beat faster. The cemetery was always empty on Fridays. She had never heard another person here before. Slowly, very slowly, Kofi stood up and turned around to see where the sound was coming from. About 10 meters away, sitting on an old stone bench near another grave, was a man. But this was no ordinary man. He wore an expensive black suit that shined in the sunlight. His shoes were made of polished leather. Around his wrist, she could see a golden watch that caught the light. His clothes looked like they had cost more money than Kofi's family had ever owned in their whole lives. Yet despite all this wealth and fine clothing, the man was crying. His shoulders shook as tears rolled down his face. Kofi's mind raced with questions. Who was this rich man? Why was he in the cemetery? Why was he crying? Most importantly, why was he sitting near her mother's grave? Fear mixed with curiosity filled her small chest. Her body wanted to run away, but her feet stayed still. She was frozen, unable to move. The man did not seem to notice her at first. He was lost in his own sadness, staring at the grave in front of him. His expensive suit and fine watch seemed out of place in this poor cemetery. Everything about him spoke of wealth and success, yet his tears were real and deep. Kofi could see that whatever sadness he was feeling was very true and very strong. Then, as if sensing her presence, the man looked up. His eyes met Kofi's eyes across the distance. For a moment, neither of them moved. The man's face was weathered and lined, showing that he had lived many years. His eyes were kind even though they were full of tears. When he saw the small girl staring at him, he did not look angry or surprised. Instead, he looked shocked, as if seeing her had reminded him of something important. The man slowly stood up from the stone bench. He wiped his eyes with his hand, trying to clean away the tears. Kofi wanted to run, but something in his expression made her stay. There was no anger in his face. There was only sadness and something else, something that looked like recognition or memory. Kofi's heart continued to race as the man took a slow step toward her. She could see now that he was very tall, much taller than any man she knew in the village. His face was kind despite his tears. He moved slowly as if he did not want to frighten her. Kofi understood then that this man meant no harm. But questions still filled her mind like water filling a cup. What did this man want? Why was he here at her mother's grave? How did he know her mother? The wind blew across the cemetery, moving dust and carrying the smell of dry earth. Kofi stood very still, waiting. The man continued to move toward her, and with each step, her fear became smaller and her curiosity became bigger. Whatever was about to happen next would change everything for this poor little girl in the dusty cemetery. Kofi stood frozen as the tall man in the expensive suit walked toward her. Her small body trembled slightly, but she did not run away. There was something in the man's eyes that told her he meant no harm. His tears seemed real and deep, not the tears of someone who was pretending to be sad. The man stopped a few steps away from Kofi. He did not want to come too close and frighten her more. He looked down at this small girl with her bare feet and worn dress, and something in his chest seemed to break even more. He took a deep breath and spoke to her in a gentle voice. "Hello, little one," he said softly. "My name is Mensa. I'm sorry if I frightened you. I did not know anyone would come here today." His voice was kind and careful, like someone speaking to a small bird that might fly away at any moment. Kofi's fear began to fade a little bit. The man's voice was warm and sad at the same time. She looked up at him and saw that his eyes were still wet with tears. I come here every Friday," Kofi said in a small voice. "This is my mother's grave. Her name was Amma." When Kofi said her mother's name, the man's face changed completely. His eyes opened wide and more tears began to fall down his cheeks. He sat down slowly on the stone bench as if his legs could no longer hold him up. He stared at Kofi for a long moment without speaking. When he finally spoke again, his voice was shaking. "Your mother was Amma?" he asked. "You are Amma's daughter?" Kofi nodded slowly, still confused. "Yes. Did you know my mother?" Mensa put his face in his hands and began to cry harder. Not the quiet tears from before, but deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep inside his heart. Kofi did not know what to do. She had never seen a grown man cry like this, especially not a rich man in an expensive suit. After a few minutes, Mensa took control of his tears. He wiped his face with a fine white handkerchief from his pocket. He looked at Kofi again and took a shaking breath. "Please sit down," Mensa said, pointing to the space beside him on the bench. "I have something very important to tell you. Something about your mother. Something that I should have come back and told her many years ago, but I was too ashamed and too busy making money. Please, I beg you to listen to my story." Kofi slowly walked over and sat down on the stone bench next to this strange man. She still did not understand what was happening, but something told her that this story was important. She sat very still and waited for him to speak. Mensa stared out at the cemetery for a long time before he began his story. "When I was a boy, I was an orphan," he said quietly. "My parents died when I was very young and I had no one to care for me. I lived on the streets of the capital city, sleeping under bridges and in abandoned buildings. I was always hungry. I begged for food and sometimes kind people would give me small pieces of bread or rice. But most people did not care about a dirty orphan boy like me. They looked through me as if I was invisible." Kofi listened carefully to every word. She tried to imagine this rich man as a small, hungry, homeless boy. "One day," Mensa continued, "I was so hungry and so sick that I fell down on the street. I could not get back up. I thought I might die right there on the road. I remember thinking that no one would even notice if I did. But then a woman stopped and helped me up. She was not dressed in fancy clothes like I wear now. She was wearing a simple dress and simple shoes. But her face was kind, and her eyes showed that she cared." Mensa paused and looked at Kofi. "That woman was your mother. That woman was Amma." Kofi's eyes grew wider. Her mother had never told her this story. She had never mentioned saving anyone. "Your mother took me to her home," Mensa said. "It was a small home not much bigger than this cemetery is long. She gave me clean water to wash my face and hands. She gave me food, rice and soup and bread. Real food, not just scraps. She let me sleep on a clean mat in the corner of her room. That night, for the first time in many months, I slept without fear. I slept without hunger." Tears began to fall from Kofi's eyes now as well. She could picture her mother doing these kind things. "I stayed with your mother for many months," Mensa continued. "She did not have much money, but she shared everything she had with me. She taught me to read and write. She taught me that I had value, that my life was important. She told me, 'Mensa, you are a boy with a bright mind. You will do great things someday. Do not give up on yourself.'" Mensa's voice became stronger as he spoke these words, as if he was remembering the exact sound of Amma's voice. "When I was stronger and older, I left your mother's home to find work in the city. I was too proud to ask her for help. I wanted to prove that I could make my own way. I found a job and began to work hard. I saved money. I started a small business and that business grew bigger. Year after year I became more successful. I made more and more money. I bought fine clothes and a nice house. I became a respected businessman in the capital city." Mensa stopped speaking and looked down at his hands. "But as I became richer, I became more ashamed. I was ashamed of where I came from. I was ashamed of the dirty orphan boy I used to be. So I tried to forget. I tried to forget the village. I tried to forget the woman who saved my life. I told myself that I was too busy to visit her. I told myself that I would return someday when I was even more successful. But I never did. I was always too busy. I was always making one more deal, one more investment, one more choice to make money. Kofi sat very still, listening to every word. Then just 2 weeks ago, I was in a meeting with other businessmen, Mensa said. An old friend from the village was visiting the city. He saw me and came to talk to me. He told me that Amma had died 3 years ago. He said she spent her last years helping other poor children in the village, just as she had helped me. He said she never forgot about me. He said she would sometimes talk about the orphan boy she had saved, and she would wonder what had become of him. She would wonder if he had found happiness in his life. Fresh tears fell down Mensa's face as he spoke these words. When I heard that Amma was dead, something broke inside me, Mensa said. I realized that I had wasted so many years. I realized that the woman who had given me hope when I had none, who had shown me that I was valuable, who had saved my life, I had forgotten her. I had never said thank you. I had never told her how much she meant to me. So I came here today to visit her grave and to say the words I should have said many years ago. I came to tell her that I remember. I came to tell her that she changed my life. Mensa looked at Kofi, and his eyes were full of sorrow but also full of truth. Your mother was the most important person in my life, he said. And I never told her. But now I am telling her daughter. After Mensa finished telling Kofi how her mother had saved his life, he sat in silence for a long time. The wind blew softly through the cemetery, moving the wildflowers that Kofi had placed on her mother's grave. Mensa looked at the small bunch of flowers and something peaceful seemed to settle in his heart. Your mother was an extraordinary woman, Mensa said quietly. But I think you already knew that, did you not? Kofi shook her head slowly. I did not know these things about her, she said in a soft voice. She never talked about helping people. She just did things. She helped people because she wanted to, not because she wanted anyone to know about it. Mensa smiled a sad smile. Yes, that is exactly who Amma was. She did not help people to become famous or to be praised. She helped because her heart was full of love. She helped because she could not bear to see anyone suffer. Tell me more, Kofi said. She moved a little closer to Mensa on the bench. Her fear had completely disappeared now, replaced by a deep hunger to know more about her mother. Tell me about the other people she helped. Mensa's eyes grew distant as if he was looking back into the past. There were so many people, he said. After I left the village, your mother continued to help anyone who came to her door. There was a young girl named Esi whose father had died and whose mother was very sick. Your mother took care of that girl for 2 years, feeding her and teaching her to read. When the girl's mother recovered, she became a teacher at the village school, and she became one of your mother's closest friends. Kofi listened intently. She had never heard about Esi before, but she remembered a kind woman who sometimes visited their home when she was very small. There was also an old man named Kojo, Mensa continued. He had no family and no one to care for him. He was weak and sick and had nowhere to sleep. Your mother let him stay in the back room of her house for 5 years until he died. She cooked for him every single day. She washed his clothes. She sat with him and talked to him so he would not feel alone. When he died, many people in the village came to his funeral to pay their respects. They said they came because your mother had shown them how to treat an old man with dignity and love. Tears began to slide down Kofi's cheeks as she listened. She was beginning to understand that her mother had been far more important to the village than she had realized. There was a woman named Abina whose baby was born very sick, Mensa said, his voice growing warmer. The baby was so weak that everyone thought it would not survive. But your mother spent night after night taking care of that baby. She kept the baby warm. She helped the mother learn how to feed the baby properly. She prayed for that child. And the baby lived. That baby is now a healthy young man with children of his own, and he still talks about the woman who saved his life. Mensa turned to look at Kofi directly. Do you understand what I am telling you? He asked gently. Your mother was not just a woman. She was an angel walking among us. She had a gift for seeing people who were invisible to everyone else. She had a gift for making people feel that their lives had value. She had a gift for loving people who had nowhere else to turn. Kofi wiped her tears with the back of her hand. But she never told me these things, Kofi said. She never talked about what she did. That is because she did not do these things for praise or thanks, Mensa explained. She did these things because it was who she was. Your mother once told me something that I have never forgotten. She said, Mensa, when you help someone, you do not do it so that they will remember you. You do it so that they will remember that they are worth something. You do it so that they will have the strength to help others. Your mother believed that kindness was a gift that should be passed on, like a flame that lights another candle. As Mensa spoke these words, Kofi began to understand her mother in a completely new way. She began to see that her mother's life had been much bigger than the small home they lived in. Her mother's love had spread through the village like ripples in a pond, touching person after person, changing lives in ways that no one would have expected. When I learned that your mother had died, Mensa continued, I was broken with grief. But I was also angry with myself. I was angry that I had not come back to thank her. I was angry that I had not told her how much she meant to me. I was angry that I had let pride and busyness keep me away for so many years. Kofi reached out and took Mensa's hand. She was no longer afraid of this man. Instead, she felt connected to him in a way that was difficult to explain. They were both people who loved Amma. They were both people who had been changed by her kindness. But now, Mensa said, looking at Kofi with wonder in his eyes, now I have met you, and I can see your mother in your face. I can see her kindness in your eyes. I can feel her goodness in your presence. It is as if she is still here, still helping people, still showing the world what it means to truly care for others. Kofi and Mensa sat together on the stone bench, both of them crying now. They cried for the woman they had both loved. They cried because she was gone. But they also cried with something else, with gratitude. They were grateful that they had known her. They were grateful for the way she had changed their lives. You know, Mensa said softly, I came to this cemetery today thinking that I was too late. I thought that I would never be able to thank your mother or tell her how much she meant to me. But now I realize that I was never too late. Because she lives on in you. She lives on in all the people she helped. She lives on in the love that she taught us to give to others. Kofi leaned her head against Mensa's arm, and he put his arm around her. Together, they sat in the cemetery in the fading afternoon light, united by their love for a woman who had been truly remarkable. The wildflowers that Kofi had brought swayed gently in the breeze, as if Amma herself was acknowledging that her work, her love, and her kindness had not been forgotten. The bond between the little girl and the wealthy man was no longer a bond between strangers. It was a bond between two people who shared the sacred memory of someone truly special. The sun was beginning to set over the cemetery, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Kofi and Mensa still sat together on the stone bench, but the mood had shifted slightly. Mensa seemed to be thinking deeply about something. His hand still rested gently on Kofi's shoulder, and his eyes were focused on her mother's grave. After a long silence, Mensa turned to look directly at Kofi. His expression was serious now, but not in a frightening way. It was the seriousness of someone who had made an important decision and was about to speak about something that mattered very much. Kofi, he said carefully, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think about it very carefully before you answer. There is no right answer or wrong answer. I only want you to be honest with me. Kofi nodded slowly. She wondered what Mensa was about to ask her. What do you want to become when you grow up? Mensa asked. What are your dreams? What do you wish for your future? Kofi looked down at her bare feet. No one had ever asked her this question before. In her village, most children did not think about dreams for the future. They thought about where their next meal would come from. They thought about how to survive each day. I do not know, Kofi said honestly. I never thought about it. I just go to school sometimes when there is money for school fees. I help my grandmother with the work in our home. I come here every Friday to visit my mother. She paused, then added in a very small voice, sometimes I think it would be nice to be able to read many books. I like reading, but we do not have many books. Mensa was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with emotion. Kofi, I want to tell you something, and I want you to understand how serious I am about this. Your mother saved my life when I was a hungry, homeless orphan boy. She gave me hope when I had none. She told me that I was valuable and that I could become something great. Because of her kindness, I was able to go to school. I was able to learn. I was able to become a successful businessman. Everything I am today, I owe to your mother. Kofi listened carefully to every word. Now your mother is gone, Mensa continued. And I can never repay her for what she did for me. I can never give her back the years that she spent helping me. I can never tell her how grateful I am face to face the way I wish I could. His voice became thick with emotion. But there is one thing I can do. There is one way that I can honor her memory and keep her spirit alive. I can take care of her daughter. I can give you the opportunities that your mother never had for herself. I can make sure that you have the education and the tools to become the strong, kind, intelligent woman that your mother would have wanted you to be. Kofi's heart began to beat faster. She was not sure what Mensa was saying, but she could feel the importance of his words. I am asking you, Kofi, Mensa said, taking both of her hands in his, to let me help you. Let me pay for your education. Let me make sure that you go to a good school where you can learn everything you need to learn. Let me help you become everything you are capable of becoming. Not because I expect anything from you in return, but because it is the right thing to do. Because your mother would want this. Because I owe your mother this debt, and I can only repay it by caring for you. Kofi felt confused. This was too much to understand all at once. Just a few hours ago, this man had been a complete stranger. Now he was offering her something that seemed too good to be true. She had learned that when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But why would you do this? Kofi asked, pulling her hands back slightly. You do not know me. I'm just a poor girl from a poor village. You are a rich man from the capital city. Why would you care about me? Mensa smiled sadly. Because I am not a kind man, Kofi. I am a man who became successful and forgot where he came from. I am a man who forgot the woman who saved his life. But looking at you, sitting here at your mother's grave, I am reminded of who I should be. I am reminded that your mother was right when she told me that kindness should be passed on like a flame that lights another candle. Your mother lit a flame in my heart when I was a starving orphan. Now I want to use that flame to light your way forward. Kofi sat very still. She thought about her mother. She thought about the stories Mensa had told her about how her mother had helped so many people. She thought about what her mother would say if she were sitting here right now. In her heart, Kofi knew what her mother would say. Her mother would say that this was a gift. Her mother would say that sometimes kindness comes back to us in unexpected ways. Her mother would say that it was important to accept help when it was offered with a sincere heart. But I do not want you to think I am taking advantage of your kindness, Kofi said carefully. I do not want to be a burden to you. You could never be a burden to me, Mensa said firmly. You are Amma's daughter. That alone makes you precious to me. Besides, I am a wealthy man now, Kofi. I have more money than I could ever spend in my lifetime. What good is money if I cannot use it to honor the memory of the woman who changed my life? What good is success if I cannot use it to help someone I care about? Kofi looked from Mensa's face to her mother's grave. She closed her eyes and seemed to be asking her mother for permission, for guidance, for approval. When she opened her eyes again, she looked at Mensa with a mixture of gratitude and hope. I will accept your help, Kofi said, her voice steady. But I want you to know that I will work very hard. I will study hard in school. I will make my mother proud. I will try to become the kind of person that she would be proud of. And when I grow up, I will help other people too, just like she did. I will pass on the kindness that you are giving me. I will help people who need help, and I will tell them about Amma, about how she changed my life and your life and so many other people's lives. Mensa's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of joy. He pulled Kofi close and held her in an embrace. Yes, he said, his voice breaking with emotion. Yes, that is exactly what your mother would want. That is exactly what I hope for. You are going to do wonderful things, Kofi. I can feel it. Your mother is looking down on us right now and she is smiling. They held each other there in the cemetery as the sun continued to set. The wildflowers that Kofi had brought swayed gently in the evening breeze. Around them, the graves of the dead seemed to bear witness to this moment of transformation. A poor little girl and a wealthy man, brought together by the memory of a woman whose kindness had created an unbreakable bond. Kofi realized in that moment that her life had just changed completely. The future that had seemed so uncertain just hours before now felt full of possibility. She had been given a gift, not just the gift of education and money, but the gift of knowing that her mother's life had mattered. Her mother's kindness had created ripples that would continue long after her death. And now, Kofi would be part of that continuing story, carrying forward the flame of her mother's love to light the way for others. 10 years had passed since that fateful Friday afternoon in the cemetery when Kofi first met Mensa. The world had changed and Kofi had changed with it. She was no longer a small girl with bare feet and a worn cotton dress. She was now a young woman of 19 years old, dressed in a simple but elegant black dress. Around her neck, she wore a gold chain with a small pendant that held a photograph of her mother inside. Kofi walked through the same cemetery where she had walked 1,000 times before, but this time she was not alone. Mensa walked beside her, his hair now streaked with gray, his face lined with years of hard work and good living. In his hands he carried a large bouquet of beautiful red flowers and white roses. Kofi carried a smaller bouquet of wildflowers, just like the one she had brought to her mother's grave on that first Friday 10 years ago. They walked in comfortable silence, their steps synchronized after so many years of visiting this grave together. The cemetery was peaceful as it always was. The grave seemed to rest quietly in the afternoon sun, and the sky above was clear and blue. When they reached Amma's grave, they both stopped and stood still for a moment. The wooden cross that had been there 10 years ago was gone now. In its place, there was a beautiful stone marker with words carved carefully into it. The words read, Amma, a woman whose heart changed the world, beloved mother, teacher, and friend. Kofi had paid for that stone marker with her own money that she had earned through scholarships and part-time work during her university years. It was one of the proudest moments of her life, being able to create something permanent to honor her mother's memory. Hello, Mama, Kofi said softly, speaking to the grave as she always did. But this time her voice was different. It was the voice of a woman, not a girl. It was a voice filled with confidence and understanding. Mensa placed his flowers gently at the base of the stone marker. Kofi did the same with her wildflowers. For a moment they stood together in silence, both of them remembering the woman who had brought them together. 10 years, Mensa said finally, his voice full of wonder. Has it really been 10 years since we met here? 10 years, Kofi confirmed. And so much has changed. I have changed so much. Mensa looked at Kofi with pride in his eyes. You have become an amazing young woman, Kofi. Your mother would be so proud of you. I am so proud of you. Kofi smiled. Just that morning she had received her diploma from the university. She had studied hard for 4 years, earning excellent grades in all of her classes. She had studied education, determined to become a teacher like her mother had been in her own way. Unlike most teachers though, Kofi wanted to teach poor children, children who had no one to help them, children like the hungry orphan boy that Mensa had been. It is because of you, Kofi said, turning to look at Mensa. None of this would have been possible without you. You gave me the opportunity to study. You paid for my school fees. You believed in me when I was just a poor girl with nothing. No, Mensa said, shaking his head. I did not create your success, Kofi. I simply opened a door. You are the one who walked through that door. You are the one who worked hard every single day. You are the one who stayed focused on your studies even when it was difficult. You are the one who refused to give up. That was all you. Kofi knelt down in front of her mother's grave. She placed her hand on the cool stone and spoke softly. Mama, I want you to know that I have kept my promise. I have worked hard in school. I have learned everything that I could possibly learn. And now I am going to do what you did. I am going to help people. I am going to teach children who need teaching. I am going to show them that their lives have value, just like you showed Mensa that his life had value. Kofi's eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude and joy. I have already received an offer from a school in a very poor village, Kofi continued. A school where there are children who have no one to help them, just like Mensa had no one. I'm going to be their teacher. I'm going to teach them to read and write. I'm going to teach them that they can become anything they want to become, no matter how poor they are, no matter how difficult their lives seem right now. I am going to pass on the light that you lit in Mensa's heart. I am going to light that same light in the hearts of my students. Mensa listened to Kofi's words and tears rolled down his face. He could see that the circle had come full circle. The kindness that Amma had shown to him, a desperate orphan boy, had been passed on to her daughter. And now Kofi would pass that same kindness on to other children. The legacy of Amma's love would continue, spreading through the world like ripples in a pond, touching person after person, changing lives in ways that no one could measure. Your mother was right, Mensa said, his voice shaking with emotion. She told me that kindness is a gift that should be passed on like a flame that lights another candle. And that is exactly what has happened. She lit a flame in me. I lit a flame in you. And now you will light that flame in the hearts of your students. And they will light it in others. This is how the world becomes better, Kofi. This is how love spreads. This is how one woman's kindness can change everything. Kofi stood up and hugged Mensa tightly. She could feel the goodness in his heart. She could understand now why her mother had chosen to help this orphan boy. She could see the kind man he had become, and she knew that her mother's faith in him had been well placed. I have something for you, Mensa said, pulling back from the hug. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I had this made for you as a graduation gift. Kofi opened the box. Inside, there was a beautiful gold ring with a small inscription inside that read, Kindness is the currency of the heart. This ring belonged to a woman I knew many years ago, Mensa explained. A woman whose heart was pure and whose love was endless. I want you to wear it to remember her. I want you to wear it to remember who you are and what you stand for. I want you to wear it as a promise to yourself that you will always follow your mother's example. Kofi slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly as if it had been made just for her. She looked at it and thought about her mother, about the life her mother had lived, about the people her mother had helped. She thought about how her mother's kindness had changed Mensa's life. She thought about how Mensa's kindness had changed her life. And she thought about how her kindness would change the lives of countless children in the years to come. I understand now, Kofi said, looking at the grave, at the flowers, at the stone marker that bore her mother's name. I understand now that true wealth is not measured in money or possessions. True wealth is measured in the love we give to others. True wealth is measured in the lives we touch and the hearts we change. My mother was the richest woman I have ever known, even though she had almost nothing. Because she had love and she shared it freely with everyone around her. Mensa nodded. Yes, that is the truth that your mother knew. That is the truth that I had to learn the hard way. And that is the truth that you will teach to your students. As the sun began to set over the cemetery, Kofi and Mensa stood together in front of Ama's grave. They stood as a testament to the power of kindness, to the strength of love, and to the beautiful legacy that one woman's compassionate heart could create. The flowers they had placed swayed gently in the evening breeze, as if Ama herself was acknowledging that her work on earth had not been finished by her death. It had only just begun, spreading through the world, through the hearts of all those she had touched, all those she had loved, and all those who would love as she had loved.